On Juneteenth, there were partiers in Oakland. People were shot. I don't know if it was at the party. I don't think so. It was nearby. And an ambulance was rushing these people to the hospital, and the partiers descended on this ambulance, held it up so it couldn't get to the hospital, and it just started twerking. You can see it if you're watching. They started twerking and a lot of sexual display, and people climbed on top of the audience, made it hard for the ambulance, made it hard for the ambulance to get through. And look, this is a scene from hell. A good storyteller loves the human story. He loves the human world. The story of the world unfolding is a tale of people interacting. I've always said that my view of heaven is a TV room, a well-stocked TV room where I get to watch the story of the world, the rest of the story of the world, and find out what happens and how it goes. I just find the world very entertaining. One of my earliest memories that I forgot for many, many decades was playing with these blocks that were shaped with people and putting them into designs, and that is essentially what a novelist does, that he takes the human drama and he turns it into more contained stories. Now, my favorite poet, John Keats, I call this the way of the storyteller. My favorite poet, John Keats, called this the poetical character. Here's what he said about what it means to have a poetical character. He says, the poetical character is not itself. It has no self. It is everything and nothing. It has no character. It enjoys light and shade. It lives in gusto. That's what you frequently hear me call joy, the vitality of life. It lives in gusto, be it foul or fair, high or low, rich or poor, mean or elevated. It has as much delight in conceiving an Iago, which obviously the racist villain from Shakespeare's Othello. It has as much delight in an Iago as in an Imogen, who's the perfect virtuous wife from Shakespeare's Cymbeline. What shocks the virtuous philosopher delights the chameleon poet. It does no harm from its relish of the dark side of things any more than from its taste for the bright one, because they both end in speculation. What he means by speculation is keeping an open mind. He calls this Keats called this negative capability. He said that's when a man is capable of being in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts, without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. He is just experiencing the world. Now, some of you might say, wow, that sounds like the exact opposite of Ben Shapiro. And it is. One of the things I'm very obviously fond of Ben, and one of the things I really like about Ben is he and I see the same factual world. We describe the world the same, but we have a different attitude toward it. And mine is very much affected by this poetical character, the way of the storyteller, of loving the unfolding play of life. Now, Keats's ideas obviously are derived from Christianity. I'm not sure he knows that they're derived from Christianity, but if he weren't from a Christian culture, he probably would not have come up with that idea of the storyteller, of what a poetical character is. It comes almost directly, I would say, from what Jesus said when he said, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and the good alike, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. In other words, it's the same kind of attitude. Instead of rushing to judgment, loving the things that you see, in order to become like God, in order to see the world from God's point of view. Now, why is the world good when you see it from his point of view, when we know it's so full of evil and so full of suffering? The world is good when you see it from God's point of view, because God is telling a story, and we know this is a story of the world's fall and its redemption, and we know that everything works to the good for those who love God and are in line with his purposes, right? Because his purposes are good, right? So when you see the world without judgment, when you see it with love, you see it becomes beautiful. And it becomes beautiful with all its horrors. It's weird. It becomes beautiful with, everything, because you're seeing everything. You're seeing it the way God sees it, instead of the crap show that we see every day and we live with every day. Now, I am a conservative, and I know exactly what you're thinking. All right, I can read your mind from here. You're thinking, if we don't pass judgment, we're not judging the way, then the Taliban will take over America and elect Kamala Harris Queen of the Universe. And yes, that is exactly what will happen if we sit around and do nothing. The Taliban will take over the world and will elect Kamala Harris. That's exactly what they will elect, Queen of the Universe. So you're right about this. I agree, and I will get to my response to that in a minute. But first, I just want to point out that conservatives too often make the other mistake. They rush to the judgment without considering the demands of love, without considering the way of the storyteller to pause for a minute and look at the good, beautiful story that is being unfolded. I'll give you an example. On Juneteenth, there were partiers in Oakland. People were shot. I don't know if it was at the party. I don't think so. It was nearby. And an ambulance was rushing these people to the hospital, and the partiers descended on this ambulance, held it up so it couldn't get to the hospital, and it just started twerking. You can see it if you're watching. They started twerking and a lot of sexual display, and people climbed on top of the audience, made it hard for the ambulance, made it hard for the ambulance to get through. And look, this is a scene from hell, right? This is a scene from hell, and it's a degraded, horrifying, uncaring, it's wickedness. And what does it mean to look at that with love? What does it mean to look at that? Well, I have to tell you, the first thing that went through my mind when I saw it, and I should say these are black people, these are black Americans, and they were celebrating Juneteenth, so there's a certain kind of horrible irony to it. We all have a natural affinity of blood, I think, a tribalism. We try to rise above it, but it's natural in our bodies. It's a part of our flesh to have this natural affinity. I, for instance, I obviously am a devout Christian, but my blood is an Ashkenazi Jew's blood. And when I see a Bernie Madoff or George Soros doing evil in the world, I get this it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. I think, dude, do not do that, because I feel this connection. So the first thing I felt when I saw this was empathy for all our fellow Americans who are black, who have to look at that and just think, a word I won't say, and their chin must fall to their chest. It's just a painful thing to see it. But what you just saw, that's not a disease of the blood. That is not a genetic disorder, what you saw. This is something that can happen to each and every single one of us once we let go of the hand of God. That is what people are when they let go of the hand of God. And how have we allowed that to happen? I'm not blaming society. Each of those people is an individual, and whatever his suffering and his pain and whatever his experience, he is responsible for what he is doing in that moment, twerking to hold up a ambulance taking a shot man to the hospital, a shot person to the hospital. They are allowing themselves to become that. But I am seeing lost souls. I know that God has a beautiful plan, that he allows us to choose evil because that's the only way we can choose good. And there is no such thing as goodness if you don't choose it, right? Goodness doesn't happen by accident, it happens by choice. Evil happens by choice, and these people have made that choice. And so it's part of this beautiful system that is ongoing, this great story that is being told that we know ends with redemption. We know from our Bibles ends with the redemption of the world, and it's a beautiful story. And we pause for a minute to see that, even as our hearts break, and even as we say, no, these people have to be held responsible. And this culture that has allowed this to happen, this culture that has spoken into their world and told them, oh, you're poor victims, you're not responsible for your behavior, or you are not part of this country because this country hates you and therefore you are outside the moral order. We have to take responsibility for that as well. So what is the difference between what we do and what the left does, okay? How can we see the world from a godlike perspective of the storyteller and without standing by while the world devolves into that kind of hell? And the answer is humility. It's Pride Month, but here on the Andrew Klavan Show, it's always Humility Month. There's no Pride Month. Humility, the mistake the left makes repeatedly, is they try to see the world from this loving point of view, but they think that they are telling the story. They have pride. They don't understand that we are seeing the world as God sees it, but we're characters in the story. We are not the storyteller. We cannot change the story. We can only be the part of the story that represents the good. Remember, a couple of things you should remember about what Jesus said. He didn't say, love your enemies and they'll become nice. He didn't say, love your enemies and the world will be a better place. He always says the world will suck. And the other thing was, he didn't say there was no such thing as evil and good. He said God shines and reigns on the evil and the good, right? He said God loves and delivers his gifts to the evil and the good. He doesn't love the evil of the evil, but he loves the people, right, who are being led astray. And he is weeping too, as we know, for these people who are lost. Humility tells us that while taking on a godlike perspective helps us see what God sees, we are not God. We are not the storyteller. Humility tells us that we are characters in the story and have to behave in such a way that we bring God's good into the world. That is our mission. That is what we're here to do. And they think they're going to change. They do this all the time. They think we're going to change the narrative. We're going to change the narrative. We're going to say that men can, it's not fair that there are men and women, so we're going to change that. And if we say men can become women, we just have to shut up everybody who says that that's not true, just censor them, just make them quiet, and then it'll become true. We are the storytellers. But it is not so, right? It is not so. We have to be the characters who incarnate the good of God into the world. That's our mission. That's our point. And we have to figure out how to do that. And I want to take a look at the way this pride of feeling that you are the one telling the story, right? This pride of seeing things as if you are the therapist of the world. You're the therapist of the world, instead of seeing, oh wait, I have to do good. I have to hold people to account. I have to make sure that our culture holds people to account and speaks about good and evil to them, and teaches them that they need fathers, teaches them that they need structure in their lives and order. All of those things are what we are assigned to do because we're characters in the story. We're not the people writing the story.